Welcome to my American History Notes, where I bring up things that I've learned about American history that I was surprised about, that I wasn't taught, along with normal stuff we're used to seeing. Um, these things are good to know, to be conversant in American history, and not to exclude, things that are value. And now I'm on number 9 of my 10th in the series of special topics on African American history. Um, and I have one more to go after this, and then we'll get into some other topics. And we also have Latinos, we have Native Americans, we have Asians that have contributed. And then, of course, we continue with other special topics about liberation movements, things like that, emancipation, which is a big topic in Western civilization since 1600, where any self-defining group has demanded recognition and acknowledgement and affirmation. So these are just things of facts. And there's not, they're not, I'm not going to be trying to make too many conclusions, but I'm a Bible believer, so I may have some things to say. But we're going to talk today some things that I've learned about some African Americans, some Black women who were significant in helping NASA, um, and something I had no idea before computers existed like we know today. Data was processed by women, and it was many times Black women, but they were much more than mere this is NASA. They weren't just calculators. In fact, um, there's a movie that's called Hidden Figures that kind of makes you go, well, I got to look into this a little bit more. Released in 2017. So one of the first ones I want to mention is Dorothy Vaughan, and she's 1943. She was a 32-year-old high school math teacher. So she was became a grade P1 mathematician at Langley Memorial Aeronautical Laboratory, helping with the wartime effort, World War II. Um, so she was able. She was Langley was racing to make combat planes fly further, faster, on less fuel, and they had to process the data from wind tunnels and other experiments. So they needed number crunchers, and it found them in human computers, they called it. They were mathematicians, were all women, and there was a recent executive order banning racial discrimination in defense hiring, and many were Black. 1941, Vaughn was made head of West Computing. It was segregated, but she was the first Black woman to hold the position and the first Black supervisor at NACA. She remained in the role until 1958 when the union was shut down and NACA became NASA. On the one hand, it was a victory for integration. She took a position working side by side with men and women of all races, programming the new electronic computers. On the other hand, she would never again hold the rank she held at West Computing, although she stayed with NASA until 1971. She was a Fortran programmer. Then there was Mary Jackson. She was a mathematician and an engineer at Langley. She worked on experimental supersonic aircraft, acknowledging how the air flowed over all the features. She also spent time in the wind tunnels at Langley. Um, she had to take graduate level courses after work hours. She sat in all white classes. And in 1958, I mean, this is where sitting in a situation where nobody looks like you, that's a tough one. In 1958, she became NASA's first Black female engineer. She was never promoted though, and after 30 years, she made a change. She always tried to support women at NASA, um, and advise them. She took a job in human resources, helping other women and minorities advance into roles that she'd never been able to get herself. Miriam Mann is another one. She worked as a Langley human computer in 1943, and after the war, she stayed. Before the war came and went and man stayed and liked to sign the cafeteria at red colored computers, relegated the Black women of West Computing to a lone rear table. Man, this was just too much. She took the sign away, and a little rebellion took up the department. So she was at Langley when the first electronic computers were installed, and she partnered with an engineer working on the mechanics of space docking maneuvers. She stayed until 1966 when her health failed her. By then, the colored computer sign was gone, and Madden's story was passed down through her family and through the other women at West Computing. Then we have Christine Darden. She was a sonic boom researcher at Langley. She spent 25 years learning how to keep things quiet, that is, how to minimize the ear shattering shock waves from faster than sound planes and rockets. But she also was outspoken. And basically, her thing was why were men with the exact same credentials and experience landing the higher level engineering positions. So she got a transfer to engineering, where she began sonic boom research that would take her to the upper levels of NASA management. By the time she retired in 2007, she had authored more than 50 papers on supersonic boom and aircraft design and reached the senior executive level at NASA, the first African American to do so. Then there was Annie Easley. She started out as a computer, so to speak, at the Lewis Research Center in Cleveland, Ohio. She became a programmer. This is hired in 1955. She became a programmer when computers became machines, honing her skills in programming languages like Fortran and SOAP. 1970s, as well as daring to wear trousers to work, she made another radical choice and went back to college. She joined NACA with just 2 years of pharmacy coursework on her resume. She completed a mathematics degree in 1977 while working 40 hours a week. Over the years, Easley produced code that went on to be used in renewable energy research, including batteries for early hybrid vehicles, as well as for the high thrust liquid hydrogen Centaur rocket used to get space capsules in orbit. So these are just a few of the women that were African American women that aren't normally recognized when we think of NASA. We don't picture them, but before the computers took over, they were very helpful in the background, and I just think we should remember them. And I hope that you'll study if you're interested. There's many more people to look at that I'm missing. We have one more special topics class on African American history. We'll talk about science, scientists, and I hope that you'll study on your own. And thank you for watching.